live. Welcome back, Film Noobs, to another week. It's been exciting having all these awesome guests right at the beginning of the year. I love it. This week, we have another awesome guest. Um, when I got sent his information, I was really, really impressed, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let me introduce you first to him, Miguel Ferrer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about who you are first, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty about your film.
Okay. I was born in Venezuela, Cuban mother, Spanish father. I immigrated to the United States in 96 when I was 12, and I lived in Miami for about 11 years, went to middle school, high school, and college there. And then right after college, 2 days after college, I moved out to LA to pursue this dream of being a filmmaker. And did a bunch of different jobs. I started with National Geographic as a cameraman, was supervisor for Warner Brothers. Then I directed commercials, and then in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been diving back into narrative and doing shorts, and finally our film, The Shadow of the Sun.
Now, Shadow of the Sun, because I looked at your filmography, you have, as a director, you have about 18 credits, I think.
I think so. I haven't counted, but
Okay.
thank you.
Now, so is this your first full feature film?
It's my second, actually, technically, because I did a movie for Lionsgate in 2015. Just as a director, I was just hired to execute the project that they had. It was an amazing experience, a learning experience, one that taught me how to navigate the studio system by making a lot of mistakes. I learned, how to navigate it, and actually that I went back to the commercial world after that, and then and I it was only in 2020 that I said, you know what, I have to come back to narrative and do the thing that I wanted to do. Have been doing commercials for a long time, but I wanted to go back to narrative and do that.
Now, did you go to school for film, or you just like jumped into it?
I went to school at University of Miami Film School, but I my school was really, earlier on in my life, grabbing my dad's high eight camera and then shooting movies and shooting music videos with my friends, and inspired by him really because he always had back in Venezuela he had a Betamax cam,
Wow.
Betacam, and he would take it to all his adventures in Canaima and Roraima, in the Andes, and then he'd come back with these stories. He would come back with these. He would edit these docu pieces with all his friends. They even had credits and everything, and like drawings and production design. And then he would have like a VHS, a 2 hour VHS tape of the adventure. And then I would watch these and go, wow, my dad and the adventure. My mom was also a dancer, so the arts were always a big part of my family. And and then when I was in high school and in middle school, I would, anytime that there was a project, a PowerPoint presentation on Spain, on Sevilla, I would ask the teachers, instead of doing a PowerPoint, can I do a movie? And they were like, wait, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, I got the script, where the whole group travels to Sevilla and we eat and we go to the museums and we get stranded and then we have to infuse ourselves into the culture and we record all this and then we bring it back and we present it. And luckily the teachers said, yeah, yeah, do that. So then we would make this movie, production design, we would do concept art, we would do things that we had no idea that, and I had no idea that I was making a movie in that sense, and that I was editing, and I would just think about what I want to do, and then this is how I did it. I didn't know that there was a process because back in the day there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram to like tell you that even filmmaking was a career. So I really my love for cinema kind of I kind of started doing it when professionally, really, when I learned that it was a career when I was 19. And then I went to University of Miami, and through a longer story, a stroke of luck, I was able to attend that prestigious program, almost full ride, and because my parents weren't able to pay it, and And anyways, and then I said, once I found that, I said, this is it. This is what I want to do in life.
Man, that's awesome because a lot of times, even with my students, I tell them, I'm like, look, if you don't wake up eating, dreaming, wanting to make a film, no matter what, you don't need a camera. You don't need the 4K. You don't need the Vinci, whatever it is. You won't let anything stop you from making a film. So you had that already ingrained in you when you were small, and thanks to your parent, well, your dad and your mom also, for ingraining that. So that I love that story how you got here now. So now that you're here and having traversed through the commercial world and the studio system, which I do want to ask you a little bit about that, because it is interesting. You're probably the first guest that I have that's been through or has had the taste of the studio system and then come back to the indie world and be like, you know what? I'm good. I'll do this now on my own. I've learned the lessons.
Yeah.
So how
Well,
would you say that part of your journey has been?
well, I first of all, when I took the opportunity, I hadn't done a feature, and I took the opportunity to do it. It was these crazy French producers and Lionsgate doing this like action picture, and the way that I approached it was I wanted to make a character piece about a woman running away from her past, from her violent past. And then in the end, what they ended up wanting to do was what they originally had, which was, and they said yes to all my ideas and to everything. And then what they originally had was more of an action, underground fighting piece, right? And the experience was great because, first of all, I learned a lot. And also, I learned a lot about myself, about what I did right, what I did wrong, the things mostly most of the stuff that I mistakes I made were in hiring not the wrong people, not people that were not qualified, but just they weren't a good fit for that project, right? And I think that the biggest lesson there was you got to find great collaborators, and you got to find people that understand your vision and that also want to go in that direction, right? Because also it was a studio picture, so I had very little. It was my first one, so I had very little to do with casting and very little to do with even department heads. And I did have my say, but in the end, I didn't have, I don't want to say full control, but a lot of control on that. Um, what I learned from that was you have to protect yourself when you start making a picture, especially something that you are going to spend a year and a half, 2 years working on. You have to pick the right collaborators, pick the right team, and also make sure that your contracts are airtight so that you're protecting yourself, you're also protecting the story, and you're also protecting everybody's work, because a production designer might go in there and do amazing work, and an actor might do amazing performances. And if the editor's not there, and the editor's not up to that level, and they don't have the experience or they have a different vision, all that work literally goes down the drain. Because
Wow.
then, you can't show it to anybody, or you can't really show it and say, hey, let me show you this movie, and put a little asterisk and say, but, I did a lot of great, better, much better performances, just that, in the edit, they messed it up. You can't do that. And also you're being judged and compared against other films that have 20 times more budget and whose creative leaders did have that freedom and that weight and that say to say, no, this is the vision and this is what we're going to do. So I guess my biggest takeaway from that was, make sure that your team is the proper team for the project. And in Shadow, because it was a completely different um, scenario, it was me and producers and collaborators that I've known for years, that I've known can work in Marvel pictures if Marvel calls them, and they'll kill it. But because of circumstance, and because obviously they're working on other stuff, they haven't, and they were able to work on Shadow. And it was me, and also it was self-financed, so I didn't have to answer to anyone. And I felt that we needed that chance to say, to show people something and say, this is what we did. We did it. We're proud of this on a tiny budget, on a micro budget, and give us the opportunity to do something with more budget, and let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason, I think 1/10 of the reason why we did the film.
Now, I do have to say that having seen, your movie, um, I want to pronounce it correctly, freaking The Shadow of the Sun, because it's in Spanish, so I have to translate it here. Uh, because of your movie and having seen your movie, I honestly will say the cinematography. So I don't know who your cinematographer was, and I wanted to ask you about that. The cinematography on that movie was on par with a lot of stuff that you see on the upper scale of the indie world going into the studio sector. And I would honestly say it rivals a lot of what, not Marvel, because Marvel, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars that they dump into it.
Of course, of
But
course.
on a average good drama that comes out of Hollywood, I would put it in that scale.
Thank
Um,
you.
so with that said, what were some of the concerns, or what did you shoot it on first? Let me ask you that. What did you shoot your film on first?
We shot it on Alexa Mini and anamorphic Atlas Orion lenses. There was three lenses: a 40 millimeter, a 65, and a 100. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that. Yesterday on a Q&A, I was mentioning this, and people always have the same reaction. El Gocho Duque, Jose Duque, was the cinematographer, and when he's a career gaffer, 35 years gaffing in the Venezuelan industry. And when we were doing pre-production, he calls me and he says, "Hey, Miguel, so who's the cinematographer? Who are you going to bring?" And I said, "What do you mean? Yeah, who are you going to bring to so I can start talking to them?" I go, "No, it's going to be you." And he says, "Well, what do you mean, me? No, like I haven't shot a feature ever. I've never shot a feature before." And I said, "Then you're going to shoot this one." And he said, "Well, okay. What lenses are we shooting on?" I go, "Anamorphic, Atlas, Orion." He said, "I have never touched an anamorphic lens in my life. What are you talking about?" And I said, "Don't worry. I have, and we're going to work it out. It's going to be great." And he stepped up to the plate. I had worked with him in commercials and music videos. He had DP'd those for me in Venezuela, and he had gaffed for 35 years. I saw the way that he lit and the way that he worked, the way that he painted with light, how fast he did it, and how efficiently he did it. And I said, you're gonna do it." So I took the lenses down. At this point in Venezuela, there wasn't any anamorphic lenses in the entire country, and there was only one Alexa Mini. So I took the lenses down, and then we started shooting on the first day, and he said, the composition that we want, it's just a bit off in my head, because I never. So why don't we do this? Why don't you op it and you shoot and you take care of camera? We'll talk about lenses, and I'll light it. And I said, perfect. So I from day two on operated the camera and throughout the rest of the movie, because I was used to the anamorphic composition, right?
Yeah.
And placing actors and whatnot. And that helped a lot, because that also freed him to light and to spend his time lighting with his guys. And also a nice little tidbit is that he did this in 18 days, 12-hour days, with three guys in G&E, and one of those guys is 65 years old. Um, so now I tell you that, and you already have an appreciation for the work that he did. Now I tell you this, and I know that, like everybody, like, Academy voting gaffers and DPs that have seen the film, they go, how,
Yeah.
how? How?
especially because you are shooting on anamorphic. A lot of concern has to be taken in for lighting. And I really wanted to touch on the cinematography because I was like, your opening shot, first of all, is on a super wide angle. It's almost reminiscent of a Western where everything's super sharp all the way through, wide open, wide lens, and you take the time to really set up that shot. He comes in, then he has, it stops, and even then when he's coming over the hill, I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. It's shot very beautifully. Even to when you are doing the close-ups are still. Now I know you shot them on anamorphic, so I understand now why the frame is the way it is. But I was like, man, I kept wondering. I'm like, okay, what is he shooting on? What is he shooting on? Because I see the difference, the way anamorphic works when you're doing an over-the-shoulder shot is not the same. The displacement is not quite the same as what you normally see on a 35, and you start seeing the differences, but it's very subtle and very almost natural feeling to it because our eyesight is not technically 35 millimeters. Our eyes, we have the full peripheral where we see everything. It's not perfectly sharp, but we see everything. So seeing that perspective that you were shooting on and seeing how you placed everybody, I was like, wow, okay, they took their time, and I see it. But now that you're telling me it was done on an anamorphic lens, and I'm like, oh, okay. I have to go back and revisit it and you really take in how everything was really done well. I also like I said, everything was super sharp, so you get to see your scenery, something that we don't get to see a lot because everybody's 2.8, 2.8, 2.8, because you want that bokeh in the back, and I'm like, okay, but you don't get to experience your environment. You don't get to be in there with that person. You don't get to see when he walks off a little bit and he trips over something, and you don't see that focus. You don't see what he tripped over. But well, normal. But with yours, you get to see it all. ¿Me
Yeah,
entiendes? I'm like,
yeah.
man, okay, cool, cool. I love it. So, congrats, Miguel. Congrats. I really love that. Um, man,
I can talk to you about the cinematography for days because we did it. And Gocho and I had a lot of conversations about how we did it and what we did and was intentional. I'm glad, for example, our widest lens was a 40, but a 40 anamorphic, so it's more like a 20 to 25. But the reason why we wanted a 40 as our widest lens is because I wanted to bring I mean, Los Llanos in Venezuela, the plains are, I mean, it's to infinity, right? So there's a mountain all the way back there, and on a real 20, that mountain would never be red. But on a 40 and or a 65, even when you do a wide shot, it compresses. I took a little bit of a page from Peter Jackson when he did the scenes in Lord of the Rings, the battle scenes. A lot of those shots are shot on a 50. The super wides with 500 extras were on a 50 because he brought those mountains up to us so it looks more cinematic and there's more parallaxing and things like that. And we also shot it in 175, sorry, 275. So it's a little bit wider than 240, even though it's in a 240 package. It's still, there's a little bit more black on the top and bottom.
yeah, that would explain the framing. Okay.
Yeah. Um, in the lighting, for example, whenever the two brothers are together, the light always comes from Alex. Leo, they always comes from the key light always comes from the Alex. If Leo turns his back to his brother, he's in shade, he's in shadow. He has to open up to his brother to receive the light, right? To
Oh,
the
dude, I
receive,
didn't catch that. Ow, chinga. I
and
didn't
then
catch it at all.
And then a little spoiler here at the end, after he performs, it's the only time when that's reversed. When he comes down the steps and he's there, there's a light behind him on the hallway, and the light is pushing from Leo to Alex because it's the first time in the story where he's shining, where he's giving, and his brother sees him, right? So things like that we talked extensively, and we wanted to, even though there's like subconscious, There are things that, like I'm saying now with you, and hopefully somebody in a Reddit thread, 5 years from now will be saying it.
Yeah.
But it's subconscious, and I think the audience reads that and feels it.
Yeah, a lot of times, and even when we teach what is cinematic, a lot of it has to be the subtext of what's not said. And I love the fact that you are talking about painting a picture with light, especially with light, because light, dude, makes so much difference when you start talking about character development. Character development through light or music done well is such a craft that most people don't take into account or take the time, like you and Gocho.
El
Is that
gocho,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, and Gocho, to really, at least at our level, and I'm saying our level independent, at least at our level, to really put that into effect. And mainly because we're always on a time crunch. We're always like, oh, we gotta go guerrilla style, filmmaking. We just want to tell a story, get it out there because the budget is not there. But you're proving us wrong because you're saying, hey, dude, no, 19 days, you have a very cinematic looking film. Okay, now you're shortlisted on the Academy Awards, which we need to talk about that too, because that's a big accomplishment. Especially getting set for your second feature film. So tell us about that too. But I want to keep talking about your cinematography because I'm excited about that. There's so much to talk about painting the picture and crafting because crafting your story has a lot to do with getting you to that place. Otherwise, they would be like, nah, it's not too far. At the end, so because it is up to par, you're there. You're on that stage now.
Thank you.
So tell me about that. How does it feel, or what does it mean for you or your journey now?
Well, first of all, it was a great honor to be able to represent your country at this stage. It's a great honor because the idea of this movie was to paint a picture of who we are as Venezuelans, and to paint and to bring into a cinema, into a story, the invincible spirit that Venezuelans have. That despite the obstacles that they endure on the day to day, they make their dreams come true. They get to their goals. They accomplish the mission, and they do it with a smile. And then they offer you, whatever they have in their hands, whether it's you want to come to dinner, you want to come have a drink at my house, and they're like, you don't even have money to feed your family. What are we talking about having, you know, and they do it with warmth, and they do it with a fervor, despite the political oppression that has been going on for the last 25 years. And I said, there's a lot of movies, a lot of stories about the horrendous things that have been happening for the last 25 years, but there isn't a movie that you can see out there that I saw at the moment that told people this is who Venezuelans are in the day to day, and this is their invincible spirit, and this is how they dream, and this is how they eat, and this is how they chambean to make ends meet, and this is how they make miracles happen. And so to be recognized in that way, and to say for a group of people to say, a group of filmmakers, Venezuelan filmmakers, both in the country and outside of the country, in Spain and Miami, that are part of the diaspora, to say this is the film that's going to represent us. It was a huge honor, and a huge honor for the people that worked on the film too, because 68% of the people that worked on this film had never worked on a movie before. Not only had they never worked on a movie before, they had never worked on a commercial before, or a music video, or a branded spot, or whatever. They had never been on a set with a professional camera in their lives. Angelo Lopez, who plays Alex, had never acted in his life before. He was a kid from El Valle, which is un barrio in Caracas. And I can tell you stories like that, but I mean, till the cows come home. And it just goes to show that there's so many treasures and so much talent hidden in Venezuela. like in all of our other countries too. For me particularly, I went to the dirt in Venezuela and I dug, and I didn't have to dig that much.
Yeah.
Literally, right there at the surface. Right there at the surface. All I had to do is say, "Oh, Angela Lopez, come here. Camila Curtis, Grace Jimena, El Gocho Duque, Eduardo Toro, our art director, Will Romero, our producer," and just say, "Here, guys, I have this story. Do you want in?" And they said yes. And I've been very fortunate to be able to uh, go down there and work with the caliber of these artists. And again, to be recognized by the Academy, and then to bring that story to here, do the Oscar campaign, have Steven Spielberg's gaffer tell me, how did you do that? That was, I was bawling and I loved it. And how did you do this? How did you do that? And I'm there looking like I couldn't even answer questions, you know. Um, and then people come up to us and saying, "We didn't know that this was Venezuela, that this is the Venezuelan people and the spirit. Now I want to meet these guys. I want to meet Pedro, the taxi driver. I want to meet Bing the priest. I want to have a beer with that guy. I want to, where is Tita? And how can I help her get her guitar dreams come true?" And and then that is the thing that we always wanted, because we always say it was a story from Venezuela for the world.
No, I feel you. I mean, it warms my heart to hear that, because one of the things that I cherish the most, and this is a personal experience of mine. The first time I did one of my films, we had a screening and everything, and there was this lady. She was from the west side where we represented the film from, and she was from the barrio. She was a chola and everything, so she represented that culture. And she comes up to me. She's like, "You know what? She reminds me so much of my abuela." And she was about to ball out, and I was like, "Wow, dude!" And it touched my heart. And she gave me a hug, and I was like, I didn't know how to respond to that. I was like, "Okay." It was just a movie for me. It was my first movie, and I was like, I just wanted to make a film, but I didn't. I ended up representing certain people that it touched them, and I was like, wow. So with this film, when I saw it too, I was like, dude, it's beautifully shot. It's a gorgeous freaking story. You overcome so much, and it's like uno tras otro, tras otro, and it is the fighting spirit. Como Latino, you're like, wow, okay, that's awesome representation of who we are as a whole. But you're also representing Venezolanos and that culture, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And to get that recognition, congrats, Miguel, big
Thank you.
congrats. Um, Now I will have to ask you, your whole movie was in Spanish. When I made mine, I did it both Spanish and English. And the biggest question was, why not just in English? Because you're in an English, whatever. Do you think your movie would have lost any of the, would it be lost in translation? What I'm saying is, if you would have done it half and half, mucho, or in English in Venezuela, trying to depict the same characters.
I think that yes, I think that it would have lost, and I think that there's always, film is also a business, right? So like there's this sometimes producers and agents and production companies, they're in studios, they're like, can you do it 50% in English, 60% in English, and because that's going to be a better sale, right, for the market. That's good, and that's 100% understood. Um, However, in this particular case, I felt like it needed to be in Spanish because, well, because it's set there and because it brings the authenticity that it needs, that the story needs, and it takes you to another place. Um, I think that it's part of it, part of the lingo, part of the sazon that we have in our language. Um, and also part of like not a lot of people, Latinos, like have seen a Venezuelan movie in the theater, right? So you have un Mexicano and like Familias Mexicanas in Monterrey, where we screened, watching a whole film in Venezuelan Spanish with our accent, with our idioms, and they're like "Güey, estuvo padre," and like and a girl actually bawling and saying like, that was those two brothers. That's me and my brother. That's me and my brother. And I was in Monterrey, and like we're like from a small town, uh, about an hour from Pachuca, and that's me and my brother. And I was like, yo, this is great because the film travels and we see ourselves in there. And then as far as the English language question, um, I this kind of came afterwards when I realized that the film traveled, that what we had set out to do, we did it, and I think we did it with even more strength than what we thought, which was to make a Venezuelan film but make it universal. And that is that when that started happening in screenings and whatnot, I decided to. Somebody actually came to me and said, "Who has the remake rights?" And I said, "Well, no one yet, but I guess someone soon will." And we actually wrote a an English language remake that's already written, and we are actually in almost about to go into full development with casting, and we have somebody that's really interested in one of the roles, and it would be an English language. It's pretty much the same story. It's just two immigrant Latino brothers, and they're Mexican. The family's Mexican, and the brother Leo leaves Mexico with Alex, and they settled in Corpus Christi. And then in Corpus Christi, they have the influence of the music there, right? The Tex-Mex, the Tejano music there, that whole movement. And they have the same gang problem, but the gangs are American gangs. Pretty much the whole plot is almost the same. And then the Tokyo, the big contest, the dream is New York. So then they take that road trip up to New York. And I said, and once we came up with this, I said this. I mean, imagine that story with a good budget and some premier, A-level actors, and a great production team. That's a movie that travels and that is going to get a lot of, and then we can tell the story again. It's the story about, it's never too late to reach for your dreams. And that you must reach for your dreams, and you must walk that path, because walking the path towards your dream makes you be the best version of yourself. And if you are the best version of yourself, you're the best version of yourself for you, for your family, for your community, and for your country. And all that gets better. So I'm a big proponent for everybody. If you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be a singer, you want to own a pastry shop, you want to work in Wall Street, you want to be an artist, a painter, you go do that. And the world's going to be a better place because of it.
Man, Miguel, you need to write an inspiration book while you're at it, brother. You really do. You got me fired up. You got me fired up thinking, I'm like, man, I need to go do something now because Miguel is right. I need to do something. Got doggone it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for
No,
real.
but in all reality, I really wanted to ask you that also about being lost in translation. But now that you're explaining it the way you are, I don't think it would lose. Anything would be lost in translation. The only thing would be that, how can I say it? It's like almost seeing that character of being Venezolano in front of the camera, that flavor, that sazon, like you said. Pierde el sazon, but now you got some Old Spice or whatever you want to call it, some Tex-Mex spice now in it.
Yeah.
So there's a different flavor that you would be infusing your film with. Same story, pero I think, and even and we see it nowadays a lot when we do the remakes or the updated version.
Hmm.
Um, it's not quite the same.
Right.
It's there, but it's not quite the same.
That's why
And
it's got to be, it's got to be, it's got to be the message has to be the same, the message the same, but the delivery and the vehicle can't be the same because it's not the same experiences. So in our process too, we're already looking at writers that are from that area or that know that area really well, that know the culture, and then talk to them the same way that I did with Acarigua. I'm from Caracas. I don't know. I had traveled through Acarigua with our producer Will Romero, but a lot we talked to him a lot and talked to a couple of the guys and girls from the production, and we consulted with them, and I had a one of our PAs. I brought him to all our castings. Sorry, not a casting, our rehearsals. And he was like, "Oh, what do you mean? Why?" I go, "You just come." And when he came, Carlos and Gracie would do the scene, and then I would go to Efrain, and I would go, "Okay, so you see that? Does it feel authentic?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, she would actually say this, and then he would say that, and then he or she would say like, ah, ya me vas a amansar, and like amansar, like that's a word I would have never used, but that's a word that's used in Acarigua, so 100% here it goes into the script, and that's the way that you keep it authentic and that you know the character and you know the emotion and you know what you want out of the scene, but it's those nuances that make it feel real. And the same thing, if these two characters in a remake are set in Corpus Christi, I've never been to Corpus Christi. I definitely will be going and doing my research, but I also want to talk to the people that are from there, see how they speak, see how they move, see how they walk, and have somebody there checking me and checking whoever me or whoever's directing it, to make sure that it's authentic and that people, when we take people to that place, they're there.
When you get ready to come to Texas, let me know, brother. I will meet you at Corpitos, and we'll have a really good time down there, man.
Amen.
Definitely,
Amen.
I'm down. Going back to, man, I'm like, I'm so like, I don't know. I want to ask you so many questions because it is your journey to where you're at now, and I don't want to take for granted what I'm about to say, but I want to say it. Como Latino, to have somebody who's not from here, who's traveled here, who's assimilated into the culture, who's enjoyed the culture, and now is going back and reflects both sides of him and is fighting and is shown that yes, sí se puede, porque sí se puede, con ganas. And to be at the level where you're at and be like, dude, if I could do it, you can too. I mean,
100%.
represent who you are. Be 100%. Keep going. Keep fighting. Keep showing, and you get there. But it's that fight. Es la lucha que siempre tenemos como Latino hispanos being in both worlds at the same time. And it's one of those that I love it, and I'm enjoying listening to you say all that. And I'm like, I'm man, Miguel, I'm your new biggest fan. Um,
Thank you.
because again, like when we got recognized in the Oscars for the first time a couple years ago for the directors, con Alfonso y luego con
Con Iñárritu.
yeah, it's like wow, we're getting recognized. You know what I mean? We're starting to have a foothold in history again. I say again because we've been there, but they never say, "Oh, como Latino, como Mexicano, como Venezolano." You know what I mean? So I'm like, wow, yes, there is the opportunity. So I don't want to ever hear anybody like, oh, you can't because you're the poster child that yes, you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%. And
yeah, Miguel.
I tell this, I mean, because you talked about students earlier, and I tell them, me gusta dar charlas to students and to in film festivals. Sometimes they have like the opportunity to do a panel and talk to the students. Or and in Venezuela, the first time that we that we did that, it was like 250 students, and they had seen the movie already the day before, and it was like I think it was like 900 people in the theater, and people were sitting on the aisles, and it was just a crazy energy. But I told this to students at the end. I talked to them about directing. It was kind of like 101 and like this and that, and this is what you do, and this is how you do it. And then at the end, I showed them a bunch of pictures of a bunch of directors, and I told them, well, look, this is Ridley Scott, and this is how he started, and this is this guy, and this is how he started. This is this woman, and this is how she started. And then I always went back to like they all have like one thing now of how they started. It was like they did a $6,000 film, and they paid for it by working at McDonald's or whatever. And because the kids, they sometimes they think that like you're there and that like that's an impossible dream. It's like, oh, that person's there, they probably had money, they probably. And I told them, and I tell you, you can tell this to all your students, like that. um I come from a middle class family. I didn't have any connections when I came to LA. I came out and I slept on a couch, and I don't know if I'm going to make it through this one, but my first job in LA was washing dishes, and I still had a lot of privilege. I went to a university. Luckily, I was becado. I only had to pay 2 grand a year to go to that college. That gave me privilege, and I have two great parents and a great family that supported me. Had the few bucks that I had to come over here on a plane. That's privilege that a lot of people don't have. I had one friend that had a couch. That's privilege that a lot of people don't have. And then even with all that stuff, people think like, oh, you handed this on a silver platter. No, man. Like my first job was washing dishes for like 2 months, and then I got a little job doing a documentary, and then I started making my way up there. Right. My first apartment, it was a studio in Koreatown. I didn't have a bed. I slept on the floor. I didn't have a pillow. So I tell them this because, not because like, oh, look how far I've gotten. Nah, there's people that have way less than me that have gotten way further, and that have survived and overcome much greater obstacles. But what I'm sharing this is to say, Baba, if I did that, you can do it. You know, if I did that, you guys can do it too. You just got to be very perseverant, love the work, fall in love with it, and know that it's going to be like this, ups and downs, and you get there. Um, yeah.
No, Miguel, it is a big inspiration to you. And I'm sorry, my cat's going crazy. He wants to go outside. Give me a second. I'm sorry about that. That's one of the biggest things that again, I I, I love our conversation, Miguel, because we're not only do you see the fight in you, but you also see the fight in the story you're telling. You know what I mean? So it's almost cascading one over the other, and it's almost like feeding that fire, ¿me entiendes? To represent so much. And I keep saying that because it is a representation of who you are, your background, your culture, your Latino-ness, if you want to call it that, or whatever. But that fight, that fervor, as you said before, that fervor in you, even as a filmmaker, because it is. And a lot of times I take for granted the fact that I always say, oh, us at our level, at independent film, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Because again, you've proven the fact that even at an independent level, a micro budget film can have that kind of influence, can have that kind of ripple. You know what I mean? So again, just congratulations, Miguel, because I'm really taken back from what everything that we've talked about, your film, your process, your journey, and so forth. And I'm gonna kill my cat.
It's all good. It's all good. We love the animals. We love them.
But no, that's I want to continue talking about everything, the process, the
For sure.
cinematography.
Yeah.
But I think it's more important to me right now to kind of focus a little bit more on you because I, like you said, I do want and the people who listen to us film noobs, I do want them to understand that yes, we can continue doing this process, but not give up on that dream that we could get where you're at. ¿Me entiendes? And I think it's very important because a lot of times it is, and I try to focus on independent guys because most of the time we don't get that shot. We really don't. But now let me ask you something with you, because you do have a representative for your film. The importance of having representation for the film and being able to break into that process, or the journey to make it past, oh, I'm on Amazon, oh, I'm on Netflix, I'm on Tubi. How do you see that, and the importance of that?
Well, it's super important. That's why, Paul Hudson from Outsider Pictures, he loved the picture and he said, I wanna take it. I think it has a, 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 a beautiful message, and I think that it has legs to go on a small theatrical window. Um, we were super floored. I mean, to get a movie in cinemas, an independent movie in cinemas right now, is really really tough. Not only that, an independent movie that's in Spanish with no name actors from Venezuela. Um, that is a drama, a comedy. Um, that's those cards are stacked up against you because the ideal, like because the like for example, like in the U.S., like the biggest Latino community is the Mexican community, right? So
Yeah.
the ideal scenario for an independent movie is Mexican comedy or horror, right? And
Or
if it's
comedic horror.
if it fully fully, and if it's gonna be in Spanish with a star, with an Omar Chaparro, with Eugenio Derbez, with Kate del Castillo, or other stars like that. That is like, distributors and exhibitors go, yes, bring it on, because that's gonna hit our market. So it's been tough to get the windows that we wanted to get the film on the screen, but Paul was really key, and he pushed through, and we got it into the markets that we needed to get it. And it's really, for us, was really about getting it there and make sure that it brings the film a more prestige, so that then when it comes out in digital or through a streamer, it has a little bit more force. It has a little bit more, yeah, more legs, and that people can see it there. We have a distributor in Mexico. The film has been rolling in Mexico, in different states, and it's going to have a hopefully a big Mexico City premiere soon, and we'll announce that. And then now we're negotiating to go to the rest of Latin America, Spain, Europe, and it's little by little, because the ideal scenario is that, a Warner Independent or a similar distributor says, "I love this. Give me this for the world rights for 3 years," and then that's it. You give it to them, and then you show up at the press conference. For independent cinema, that's rarely the case, and you, as the filmmaker and the production company, have to do the legwork, have to go out, have to do the panels and the interviews. Which, by the way, it's part of it. The thing is that a lot of film schools don't tell you that, and they don't tell you also that you make the film. That's like making a film. Then to sell the film and to get it into theaters or into a streamer, that's like doing another film. That's like, and sometimes it's even, for me at least, it's even harder, because that's not my skill set. So I have to be a part of it because it is an independent picture. If it's under an A24 or a Neon, they have a whole team that's
Yeah.
dedicated. But in the independent world, you have to do it yourself. Luckily, we have our producer, Álvaro Carretero de la Fuente, who is amazing at that foray, right, at that skill set of getting it to festivals, getting it to distributors, selling it. And he was the leader with all that, and I just did whatever he told me to do. And he's a great friend. He's like a brother to me. And luckily, in fact, he's also a PR, awards PR, and he does awards PR for the Oscars. And just today that the Oscar nominations got announced, his company and Joshua Jason, him and Joshua Jason, who are partners, they got, I think, 22 nominations
Wow.
uh, between the shorts that they represent, the international films, and Sinners. So having somebody like that on your team is key. It's like, it's really important because, one thing is having the product and the other one is how you're going to sell the product. And as you and I both know, there's a lot of films out there and a lot of product, whether it's a film, whether it's a hamburger, whatever, that is like, that wasn't, but the marketing was out of this world. So everybody went and saw it. Everybody went and bought the hamburger because the marketing was amazing. And then they're like, that's all right.
Sure. It's
In our business, I think that that's a big part of it. The marketing, your strategy on how you're going to put it out there, and yeah, I think we've navigated the best that we can, best that we've been able to do with what we've had.
no, and again, congratulations, because success has proven its point. The fact that, yeah, you're not marketing, but your representative has done a really, really well job of representing you and the film. Because that's what got it to my lap, and I was like, man, this is gold. I need to get him on the podcast, because again, there's so many things that I wanted to touch on and talk about because of that. And that was the point, the fact that he did his job to get you in the right places, to get you where you needed to be. Um, Man, congrats, Miguel, big time.
Thank you.
Um, so from here, now what? Besides
Well,
the American remake of your own film, but oh, like, what's the next big thing for you?
now actually, I am hopefully about to go into production for my next movie, which is a horror actually. I am actually a genre filmmaker. I love genre horror, thrillers, action, sci-fi. That's my jam. That's that's what I do. But A Shadow was a departure from that. It was a story that once it grabbed me, it kind of pulled me. But and I had to do it. The next movie film is actually it's based on a short film I made, and it's called Demonica, and it's about an ex-gang member, a Mexican ex-gang member, a woman, an ex-sicaria, who has to recruit a Jesuit priest in order to help her save her younger sister, not only from the prang and the thug that she's fallen into,
Okay.
but from the demon that's possessing her body. The sister's name is Monica, and that's why it's called Demonica.
Yep, okay.
Um,
Good play,
and
good
it's
play.
and it's set in the border. It's set in Matamoros, Brownsville. Um, so the priest is in Brownsville. She's in Matamoros area. She's kind of like a Babadook, like a mythological character of that area and whatnot, the Northeast. And then she has to pull this priest down into this underworld in order to help her sister. Uh, so it's like Sicario meets The Exorcist. Um,
That's an interesting mix. That is really interesting mix. Again, Miguel, if you whenever you come to Texas, let me know, man. I would love to sit with you and just have a cerveza or whatever with you,
Absolutely.
and just
But
really talk about
where you at, by the way?
where I'm in San Antonio, so I'm kind
Okay,
of
okay.
centralized to everything. So when you say Brownsville, it's right from us, like right there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Corpico's down the street from us, so
Yeah,
everything's right around the corner for us.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Pero Miguel, again, I want to thank you. And I'm looking at my time. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you're busy and you have another interview, but I do want to thank you again for taking your time to sit here and talk with me about your experience, not just your film. And we kind of didn't talk as much as I wanted about your film, but I love the fact that we had a chance to talk about your experience, because to me, that's fucking gold. And a lot of times we don't talk about ourselves in that perspective. We talk about ourselves as directors and toda la chingada, but we don't talk about that experience. But thank you, Miguel, for sharing that with us, for opening up with us,
Thank you.
and showing us the journey. So gracias, de corazón, gracias. Um, and I wish you the best of luck. Again, once you get done with the next film, let us know, man. We could talk, bring you back on,
Thank you,
or like
brother.
I said, if you're in Texas, háblame. We could have a cerveza, whatever. Um,
I will. I'll probably be going down there soon, so I'll definitely hit you up and thank you for the opportunity to talk about it and anytime, man, anytime. I don't need to have a movie. We can talk about film anytime you want, whether it's like this or in person, hopefully in person, and spread the knowledge. I'm a big proponent of if you get some knowledge and some experience, you share it with young people, you share it with people that want to pursue that dream, and that's what we're here for, just to para compartir si la vida te da suerte and gives you a lot of good stuff, I think it's your responsibility, and to me it's you have to share it, so anytime, brother, anytime that you need, and I hope that you keep on making more movies.
Hey, say to you, bro. Last minute, any shout outs, thank you, plugins, whatever you want. Where can we reach you? Where can we see your previous movies if you want to see them through previews? But anything about you or whatever. Ándale.
But yeah, no, you can follow me at El Miguel Miguel Ferrer at Instagram, or at the Shadow of the Sun. That's what we're going to be posting up, where we're going to be next and when we're going to come out in digital and streamers. And if you love the film, if you want to spend 1 hour of your time with us, sorry, about 100 minutes of your time with us and get inspired, come watch the film The Shadow of the Sun, share it with your family and friends, and hopefully you get inspired to make the world a better place, make yourself a better person, and pursue your dream.
Again, thank you, Miguel. Guys, film noobs. Again, hopefully y'all enjoyed our last hour with Miguel as I have. Again, I just keep saying thank you, Miguel, because it. You've been a big inspiration today. Thank you. Um, And as always, film noobs, till next time, keep watching films, support indie filmmakers, hit the like, hit the share, get the metadata going for these guys. Be the biggest helpers, proponent of these guys being a success. They need it. We all need it. So again, thank you. Until next time, see you guys. Bye.